What you want are relevant leads. You don't want to waste your time in irrelevant calls with people that are not matching your ideal customer persona. That's why you have to define a scrapable persona. A scrapable persona means you define the criteria of your ideal customer persona based on the criteria of the platform from which you want to get the contact data. For example, based on the criteria of Sales Navigator, Lucia, Dealfront, Apollo, and so on. Each of these platforms have different criteria, and you have to use exactly their criteria to find the leads that are relevant for you. Because Sales Navigator, they might think completely different about your ideal customer than Apollo or Dealfront. They all have different criteria, and you have to find out what are the criteria that you have to define to find your ideal customers. So let's do this together. There are two ways. Either you don't have any clients or you have a list of existing clients. Let's assume you don't have any clients. Then we will research the reference customers of your competitors. So in this case, we will either go to ChatGPT or Perplexity and say, please list all the reference customers and analyze where they are from, how many employees they have, from which industries they are, and so on. So this way we will get a very good overview of the clients of your competitors. And this also gives you a basis to understand what could be the ideal customer persona for my business. So how does it work in practice? Let's do it together. For example, our company is UiPath in this case, and we want to understand what are the competitors, what are their reference customers. We just insert this prompt into ChatGPT or Perplexity, and then Perplexity is even better for this case. Perplexity will analyze what are the reference customers and from which industries are they, how many employees do they have. So for example, one competitor of UiPath could be Process Maker or AI Multiple and so on. And then it's listing all the reference clients that they have and from which employee ranges or from which industries they are. Sometimes Perplexity or ChatGPT will find all this information. Sometimes it doesn't work that good. You would go to the pages of your competitors and list their reference clients or customers. It might also be that Perplexity only will generate 10 or 30 results just for your first 2 or 3 competitors. In this case, just repeat the search again and again for the other competitors so that you get a full table that lists all the competitors, the reference customers, as well as the employee ranges, industries they are from, and so on. The result is that you now have a list with companies where you know this could be clients of yours. You now also know from which industries they are, from which employee ranges, and so on. You can add even more criteria to this prompt just to understand your ideal customer persona really well, or the ideal customer persona of your competitors. Now, this is your basis for the next steps. Because if you would have clients, you wouldn't have to do this step. Then you can directly, like I did it here, list the clients that you're working with and the amount of revenue that they are generating. Because this will later on help you to weigh which of these clients are even more important for you. Instead of generated revenue, you can also use other criteria like customer lifetime value, MRR, whatever you think is the best criteria to weigh your clients. So if you already have clients, what you would do is you create a table with 2 columns. Column 1, the company names, like here, Celonis, Miro, Staffbase, and so on. And column 2, the KPI based on which you want to weigh the clients later on to understand what is the industry or what is the client segment on which I should focus my outbound campaigns. To understand what is the industry or what is the client segment on which I should focus all my outbound campaigns. If you're an agency and watching this video, what I would recommend is do this exercise even before the first meeting with your client. Because then you already understand their clients on a quantitative level and you can go through the qualitative details and the qualitative feedback together with your client. If you are a B2B SaaS CEO or tech CEO or head of sales, you can also use this quantitative insights out of your analysis to then further add qualitative insights that you have. It might be that you are seeing some trends and so on, which doesn't reflect in the data of your existing clients. So you would add these information in the qualitative session. But this is a step that we will do later on. Now let's focus on the quantitative part. So let's assume you already have a lot of customers. Then you would just list them right here with their company names and the average annual recurring revenue that you are generating with them. Otherwise, if you didn't have any clients yet, then you can list the reference customers of your competitors right here. You just need to list the company names. That's enough for now. Because in the next step, for example, if we use Dealfront, all the other information like how many employees do they have, from which industry are they, and so on, it will all be enriched. So there are two ways that I will show you right now. One is enrichment via Dealfront. The other one is enrichment via LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So what we are doing is we will download this list as a CSV file, and then we will go to Dealfront and upload this list here in DataCare. This way, it will find all the relevant information about the clients that you already have. And based on that, you can find even more potential clients that are very similar to your existing clients. So the only thing that you have to do is you have to match the company name column, which is already correctly matched in this case. And then you click Process. Here you put the threshold to 0%. This will give you the best results. And then after 1 or 2 minutes, it will stop processing and you can click on the green button right here. If you don't have Dealfront, you can just use PhantomBuster and LinkedIn Sales Navigator, which is much, much cheaper. But for example, in the DACH region or German market, oftentimes Dealfront has better data or more accurate data. And LinkedIn Sales Navigator, Lucia and Apollo are not that strong in that region. But anyways, just use LinkedIn Sales Navigator in the beginning and PhantomBuster. I will show you later on how to do that. Now we will complete the next steps with Dealfront, and then we will move on to LinkedIn Sales Navigator and PhantomBuster. So as you can see, the task has been completed. Now we can review the matches, and we can see that all of these companies have been found. So Celonis, SAP, and so on. So now we will click Continue. What you can also do is, to get a short preview, you can click on Quality Report, and then it will show you where the clients are from. So here in this case, 4 companies are AGs, GmbHs, and so on. You can also see that most of the clients that were in this list are basically companies with more than 1 billion euro in revenue, mainly from Germany and mainly in the industry of automotive or IT service companies. So this is just a short preview. What we need to use the data right now, and we will add it to a list. And from this list, we can get all the details. So now we're adding it as a list, and we will create a new list, and we say example existing clients. Means now you have all the data of your existing clients, but based on the criteria of Dealfront. So you can see Dealfront thinks SAP is from the industry of IT services and IT consulting, makes around 34 billion euros in revenue, has around 10,000 employees, 100,000 employees, and so on. And if you want, you can even enrich more data by just clicking on target and adding this list, and then you can see even more columns. But this is good enough for now. In the next step, we will analyze how many of your clients are from which industry, which employee range, and so on. Therefore, we will upload this list to our Google Sheet. And it will look like this. Here we have all the companies. Then we have all the additional information from Dealfront in this case. And what we will do now is we will duplicate the whole tab. This tab, we just duplicated. And next to each of the relevant columns, for example, what's relevant for us is like location and so on. But phone number is nothing that you can rank or sort your leads after or for. So we would just keep the relevant columns like country, state, maybe even employee range, industry code, and so on. And then we use the zählen wenn or count if function to count how many of the existing clients are from which country, are from which employee range, from which industry code, and so on. And this, in summary, is the basis of our scrapable persona. This now shows us, hey, basically your ideal clients, based on the criteria of Dealfront, they are from Germany, they have 10,000 plus employees, or 1 to 10 or 1 to 500. So these are the employee ranges that you should use as a filter, are from these industry codes, and so on. But what if you don't have Dealfront? Then you can just use LinkedIn Sales Navigator and PhantomBuster. And in this case, you do it even more detailed and weigh the different criteria by annual recurring revenue or MRR or whatever KPI is most relevant for you. Then you can see, hey, basically, absolutely 14% of my clients are from the manufacturing producer industry, for example. But when I weigh it according to revenue, it's around 18%. Or the most relevant employee count range for me is 110 to 281 employees. Or the most relevant location is Hamburg, and so on. So you get a very, very good understanding of your ideal customer persona, but data-driven and based on the criteria of the platform from which you want to get the contact data. This is a crucial step. Never skip this step. But what if you don't have Dealfront? Then you can use LinkedIn Sales Navigator and PhantomBuster, which is much cheaper. In Germany, the data oftentimes is not that accurate like on Dealfront, but it's good enough and it's much better than not defining it at all. So in this case, we would start again with our list of clients, just like this. We would upload this list to PhantomBuster, to the Phantom LinkedIn company URL finder. Then we will get a list of all the LinkedIn account URLs. And then we will use the LinkedIn company scraper to get the Sales Navigator company URLs. Because in Sales Navigator, we can get even more details out of the companies. And to get these details, we will use the Sales Navigator account scraper. So the input will be the list of Sales Navigator account URLs, and the output will be your Enrich list with all the details about each company. So it looks like this. Here you can see all the companies that are already your clients and the additional information from LinkedIn Sales Navigator. For example, how many employees do they have? From which location are your existing clients according to LinkedIn Sales Navigator? Now, like we did for Dealfront, you will take this information again, upload it here to your Google Sheet. They look something like this. And you will add the additional columns again to be able to count how many of your existing clients are from which industry, from which country, and so on. So the mechanism is basically the same, but to get the data or to enrich data, we use DataCare for Dealfront and PhantomBuster for LinkedIn Sales Navigator. If this is too technical for you, just message me and I will send you our tool, which allows you to do this analysis just by adding your company names. You don't have to do any additional steps and it will do everything for you.